feel love, and I ain't got no
I got the fire flow. Shorty getting down, going up the fire pole. Radical in the mitten where we mad cold. I got the bullfrog flow. You a tadpole. Feel the love, feel the rush.
Hey everyone, welcome to someone's favorite movie podcast. My name is Randy. I'm coming to you from the Pod Shack outside beautiful Flint, Michigan, USA. With me is my illustrious co-host, the man they call Tomko. What's up, sir? How you doing?
Illustrious. I don't think I've ever been called that before. I feel like I should be honored.
You are illustrious, you're luxurious, you are boisterous, and
soft to the touch.
oh my God, so soft. You're like aloe made human.
Oh, yes, sir.
You are walking aloe. Like I would rub my body all over. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we're getting into
This got off to a weird but oddly interesting start. Hello, listeners.
AKA arousing is what he meant to say. Hello, everybody. This is a Big Dumb Movie Show. We thank you so much for tuning in. I hail from the podcast known as Miserable Retail Slave, which is a Big Dumb comedy show. He hails from a podcast known as Jake and Tom Conquer the World, which is a what, Tomko?
A Big Dumb Geek Show.
Exactly. And when we come together, we do this thing called Someone's Favorite Movie, because every movie is someone's favorite, right? It's got to be.
Now, speaking of our other shows, you'll be pleased to know that Jake has got a bit of a jealous streak about this show, sir.
Oh, he's got those green eyes, does he?
Yeah, and I don't know how many times I've offered to have him on this show. I'm hoping he hears the sound of my voice and, takes us up on the offer, because I've got plenty of ideas of movies to torture him with.
Jacob Oldbean, you have a standing invitation to join me and your BFF in talking about some really shady movies of ill repute. Okay, sir? This is me formally inviting you, Mr. Jacob Wilson, onto this program. There it is.
Come on, Jake. You know you want to do it.
Yeah, we can do. I was actually going to ask you about your wonderful co-host, whether he wanted to do the Ewok movies with us on this program.
I think he kind of has to.
I mean,
we're calling him out in public like this.
This is a public forum. You've been called out. Either you respond with a yes or a rap diss track. Your call, sir. Your call.
Either way, we win.
I mean, the whole world wins, especially if he comes out with a rap diss track, because that would be bonkers.
That would be the highlight of my podcasting career.
Would it really? I'm not sure what the highlight of my podcasting career is. Maybe teaming up with you, sir, because flattery gets me everywhere. So here's the deal. I did record an episode dealing with this movie with my co-host from the Miserable Retail Slave, old Tommy Thompson. We did record an episode. However, he never finished the movie because he was so scared and frightened by the content. He said he was on the edge of his seat and nervous the whole time. So he never finished that. So the episode turned out rather, we'll say shitty. Can I say that?
That's adorable.
Isn't he cute? He said he just had a fight or flight response the whole time. And I'm like, what were you doing? Just like punching the air and like covering your eyes? I don't understand what that means. But yeah. Hopefully.
Oh, Tommy, I love you even more now.
Hopefully you didn't put a little poo-poo or pee-pee in your panties there, Tomko, because we got an episode to do.
Oh yes, and this is a movie I've been actually wanting to see for a couple of years now, and I appreciate the opportunity to finally check this off my list.
I feel like everybody needs to see this movie at least once. Myself, I've seen it. God help me 4 times.
I would agree. This is a must-see movie.
Yes. But before we go there, we're gonna do, because we are just a blossoming podcast still. You know, we got our baby legs like Deadpool and Deadpool 2. We've got those baby legs, and you know, we're just learning to walk. I figure we might add some new segments here and there. The first one is a very popular one. Like, you do it on your program. The Epic Film guys used to do it on their program, which I love. Nick and Justin and Loisos, they're the best.
Well, they were.
They were the best.
We're coming for them.
We're taking the crown, bros. You know, we're throwing down the gauntlet. They do a segment called "What Are You Drinking?" Right? We're not gonna We're not gonna do that though. I'm gonna ask you, Tomko, what are you watching? What movies have you watched recently that deserve a little talking about? I mean, they don't have to be the shittiest of the shit. They can be anything that you've watched recently. The floor is yours.
I haven't really watched a lot of movies recently, but I've been getting caught up on a couple of television shows that I've been meaning to watch. Baskets was one of them. Have you seen that show?
With that guy and that other guy.
Galifianakis.
Yes, that one and that other guy.
Louis Anderson, yes.
Okay.
The first 3 seasons are on Hulu, and it's this weird, surreal family drama comedy with Zach Galifianakis playing 2 twins who are just like the most awful human beings on earth, and Louis Anderson plays their widowed mother, who is long suffering because of the fact that these kids who are supposed to love and adore their mother just treat her like shit and are just awful human beings. And it's weird. When you watch the first episode, all you can see is the sight of Louis Anderson in drag, but after a while, you just kind of roll with it and you accept it. And it's actually a really effective family drama after a while.
Wow, that's interesting. I have heard of Baskets, but I did not know the premise whatsoever. I knew Zach Galifianakis was in it. And right when you mentioned it, I thought of, I think it's called Bored to Death or something, with Ted Danson and a dude from Phantom Planet. And I swear that Zach Galifianakis was in that.
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's on HBO. Don't they play like hobbyist detectives or something like that?
I have no idea, but when you said Baskets, that's what popped in my head, and I'm completely wrong.
The other thing I've been watching is Lilyhammer on Netflix. Have you heard of that show?
I have heard of it. It came out a few years ago, right?
Yeah. It's got Steven Van Zandt, who I would say at this point he's probably most well known for playing Silvio Dante on The Sopranos, though I'll always think of him as the weird bandana wearing guitar player for Bruce Springsteen.
As well you should.
Yes. He plays another gangster. He is in the Federal Witness Relocation Program, and rather than having him hide out somewhere in the middle of like Utah or Montana, he voluntarily goes to Lilyhammer, Norway, and it's one of those weird clash of culture type of comedies mixed in with a little bit of mafia good times.
Mm-hmm.
I could see why it was canceled, because at the end of the day, he's just playing the same character that he did on The Sopranos, and he himself doesn't have the ability to carry an entire series. But the cast, I think, is really interesting.
That's the problem with Netflix shows, especially like Netflix originals. You can ask Dan from Netflix and Swill about this. Like they pop up on Netflix, and Netflix doesn't really promote a whole lot of those shows unless they're Stranger Things or something, which doesn't need promotion, but you know. And meanwhile, a bunch of shows and original movies show up there, and you kind of stumble upon them, but you've got to stumble upon them. You've got to search for them. They don't make it easy.
No, they don't. Back when they first started doing a lot of original content, they were kind of known as one of the premier outlets. Kind of like the new HBO. But the problem is that they've diluted the premiere content with so much shit that it's kind of hard to separate the shit from the premiere anymore.
Yeah. Some of these original programs have become kind of the equivalent to those random direct-to-video shitty movies that you'd see in the old school video stores. Basically, they're trying to fill the shelves with content,
Exactly. They've kind of become the streaming version of the $5 discount bin at Walmart.
Yeah, pretty much. Although you can find some hidden gems in that $5 discount bin.
And we are all about the hidden gems, sir.
Absolutely. What am I watching? You just asked me, Tomko. And
yes, I did.
Yeah, I thought I heard that with using my mind powers. I recently saw Dr. Sleep, the director's cut.
How was it?
I enjoyed it immensely. However, I will tell you this. I never saw the theatrical cut. I only know the director's cut. So I liked it quite a bit. However, it is 3 hours long.
Is it worth the 3-hour investment?
I thought so. I didn't get bored. Just because I'm old and have a million things going on, I did have to watch it in chunks, but I wasn't bored by it or anything. It's just, I'm a busy man in high demand.
No, do you get scared off by long movies? Because that was one of the main things that people were talking about with The Irishman that, came out at 3.5 hours long. I don't care how long it is, as long as it's a good story that keeps me interested.
Absolutely. I don't care. Like I said, I'll just watch it in chunks if I have to. I rarely have a free 3 hours where I don't want to just collapse in a little ball in the fetal position and go to sleep. I'll watch it like an hour and a half at a time or something. Yeah,
so that detraction has never really made a lot of sense to me.
No.
I
also saw a movie that fits right in to the premise of this program. It was called Electric Dragon, 80,000 volts.
Is that the full title?
Yes. Yeah. It's a Japanese movie that came out in the early 90s. It's only an hour long, and it is a very comic booky. It's in black and white, too. It's a very comic booky premise where two separate people both get lightning powers in two random accidents. One of them learns, as he grows up, he learns he can channel those electric powers into his electric guitar to let out all of his aggression. The other one, he becomes a pet detective, believe it or not. Not Ace Ventura, though. And half of his body, for whatever reason, I guess I missed this part, or perhaps it was lost in translation. Half of his body is metal. So his face, half of it is like Dr. Doom looking, and the other is regular human. So eventually they meet, and they fight, of course. And it is quite an amazing movie.
Now, what year did this come out?
Early 90s.
Okay, because this sounds like a movie that 11-year-old Tomko would have written.
Yes, this appeals to all the teenagers, and maybe a teenager wrote it. I don't know. I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is it is bananas, and like there's an enthusiastic Japanese narrator too. He kind of serves the purpose of the Batman 66 narrator, except he's a lot more enthusiastic. He's like, Thunderbolt Buddha! Ha!
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And like, there's not a whole lot of dialogue in the entire movie either. So it goes by pretty quick. I think it's not even an hour. I think it's like 53 minutes or something. Well worth if you've got a free second or so to track down. YouTube.
I was gonna say this sounds like fodder for another episode, sir.
We could do that. Oh, here's the names. Dragon Eye Morrison. He's a reptile investigator. I'm sorry. And Thunderbolt Buddha is the other guy.
What was the first one's name?
Dragon Eye Morrison, the reptile investigator. He's technically the good guy. The guy with the half metal face is Thunderbolt Buddha. He is a vigilante TV repairman, just so you know.
Was the first guy, did he, please tell me he resembled Jim Morrison, the Lizard King?
Not at all.
Oh, that's a missed opportunity movie.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's all right there for you. He did jam on that electric guitar, so occasionally the announcer will pipe in, "He conducts electricity. He talks to reptiles. He's the man. Dragon Eye Morrison." That's great.
My God, this sounds like just an amazing fever dream of a movie.
It is a fever dream. It is. Those are the best kind of dreams, though, the feverish ones.
Yes. Yes, sir, they are.
Timco, we're about to get to our movie, but before we do, like I said before, we are a little baby newborn podcast, still trying to find our big, strong adult legs. And we got to attract the audiences somehow. What better way to attract them than with a little TNA, Tommy? Ooh, I called you Tommy. Tomco.
Oh. Paging Dr. Freud.
Right? What better way than a little TNA? You know, a little sex appeal. That'll bring all the boys to the yard, right?
Well, probably send them running once they get a little bit of a closer look, but okay.
Okay. So what I've decided to do here is talk about a real erotic thing. And meanwhile, Tomko will do a real erotic dance. Right now, he's taking his shirt off and twirling it about his head. It's real sexy. You can't see it, though.
I bet you didn't know that a grown fat man could do that with a pair of pasties, did you?
I mean, the tricks this man has learned. So what I've decided to do, Tomko, is every episode review, and every episode of this podcast review an episode of the Red Shoe Diaries. Do you remember this program?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember the premise of the Red Shoe Diaries?
I don't remember that. I just remember getting to see Tasha Yar naked.
That's true. The Red Shoe Diaries was on HBO.
No, sir, that was on Showtime.
Was it on Showtime?
It was on Showtime.
Oh, listen to the enthusiasm in Tomko's voice.
I was like 13 years old when it came out. I knew exactly which channel to turn to Fridays at midnight.
So the Red Shoe Diaries starred David Duchovny as Jake Winters, and he was known as Red Shoes because he put a column in the newspaper as Red Shoes because his wife had committed suicide, and he was trying to find a reason why his precious wife, or I think fiance, doesn't matter, it doesn't, committed suicide. So he solicited letters from other women who were in love and whatever, and so it became his own version of basically Penthouse Forum. So every episode would start with David Duchovny walking his little dog. He would read a letter that he got in the mail, and it would always start with "Dear Red Shoes." And you knew this was a super sexy show because the theme song was like aggressively saxophone. Like, oh my gosh, all the sex is going to happen because of this saxophone going bananas right now.
I'm just picturing the saxophonist from the Lost Boys now.
So I reviewed the first episode of the Red Shoe Diaries. It was called Safe Sex, and it starred David Duchovny as the narrator, basically. And the woman in question was played by Joan Severance, who is an alumni of someone's favorite movie. She was in our very first episode. She was the love interest in No Holds Barred. So from No Holds Barred to this.
I'd say that's a step up.
You think so? Hulk Hogan to full frontal nudity?
I didn't say it was a step up for her.
Oh, okay. Step up 3D, maybe.
Huh.
So the letter began, and I'm going to review this real quick. Every Friday the 13th changes my life for better or for worse, usually for worse. And that's how the sexy premise begins. And Joan Severance is standing in the rain, and a taxi cab stops, and a stranger in the back seat says, "Come on in," because it's raining, and she can't seem to hail a cab despite the fact that she's a very attractive woman standing in the rain. No cab will stop for her. So this gallant soul says, "Hey, man, you can hop into the back seat of this cab and share it with me." So she decides to, obviously, because otherwise we have no plot. The taxi driver happens to be a stereotypical Cool Runnings man Jamaican, and he calls her white chocolate right off the bat. And I'm like, well, that's offensive to, I don't know, everybody. Somehow, because the man in the back seat is super slick, he gets Joan Severance to take off her blouse because it's soaking wet. He's like, "I don't want you to catch the cold." Yeah, you're real concerned about her catching a cold, aren't you? You just want to catch a glimpse, you cad. So he gives her his coat to put over her half-naked self as the Jamaican man leers in the rearview mirror. And they start talking, and this man's philosophy in the back seat is only 4 things in life really matter: laughter, kindness, the endurance of beauty, and really great pizza. Like, I can relate to that. I love a good slice
Really?
of, well, that's what she said. She's like, "Really? Not love?" And he shook his head and he said, "Too many side effects. This man is a bachelor forever, you know? He can't settle down."
He's worried about the side effects of love on the human heart, but he's sucking down sausage and mozzarella cheese like nobody's business.
I mean, it sounds like you could have been his therapist. I don't know. They get to this man's house, and obviously he invites her up to his apartment for vegetable soup. He's like, "I got some extra vegetable soup up there," because what woman doesn't like a good steaming cup of carrots, you know? That's real yummy. So she goes upstairs because who can resist the allure of vegetable soup? And she says she has no idea what I'm doing here. Like, this is so unlike her. And she just suggests to the guy, maybe we should just go on a date. You know, dinner and a movie. And homie says, "But what about the fucking vegetable soup?" And he says, "I got some cassettes too that you might dig." And she's like, "Oh, my plan has been foiled." And then he walks up to her and puts his hand on her face, and he says, "I bet everyone in your office thinks you make love whenever you want to, but they only see your beauty, never your sadness or your fear." And then they bang on a rug because that's the only way to bang. But she says, "Oh, no, wait. Before we do this, do you have a condom?" Because obviously the episode title is Safe Sex, and that's what they're practicing, you know? And so her letter goes on, "For the first time in my life, I found someone who wanted the same thing as me, Tuesdays and Thursdays, the perfect solution for the single working woman. Anonymous and monogamous, the safest sex going, because they agree not to share each other's names or get involved in personal matters." Well, guess what? He buys...
That trick never works.
It never works. He steps his game up and buys her fucking amazing pearls. That's exactly how he described them. He's like, "I got these fucking amazing pearls for you." And she's like, "Oh, I love these fucking amazing pearls." So much so that she strips completely naked and dances full frontal nudity. And 13-year-old Randy let out a cheer. And then real life comes crashing down because her brother dies in some horrific accident, and he runs to her, or she runs to him, and he consoles her. She goes to her brother's funeral. When she comes back, this man's gone. Like he never existed. Invisible man. You can't see him, John Cena. He gone. So he just vanishes. But 3 months later, he comes back. Out of the blue, because he realized what he missed. He wants to start back, this time with no limits. Full names, no limits, let's do it. And she was like, she meets him on the street, and he's like, "How about it?" And she shoves her hand down his pants, and it's either she either squeezes real hard or it's highly erotic because his face is a giant O. He's going, "Oh," and then the moral of the story, David Duchovny says, "You go to bed with a stranger, and they can still be a stranger, but you go to bed with them again, and they stop being a stranger." And that's one to grow on. You're welcome.
Was that the actual line?
Yes. You're welcome. Red Shoe Diaries.
I wonder why you and I are the only ones that remember this show.
I don't know, but it's highly erotic and also highly comical.
Kind of makes what was it? The 50 Shades of Grey look refined.
It is a little bit refined. That's 50 Shades compared to this. But I mean, 13-year-old Randy could not tear his eyes away from free softcore porn. So we didn't have
13-year-old Tom could not hit the fast forward button quickly enough.
Right. Yeah. Boy, things were rough pre-internet. You have no idea,
you had to
kids.
record that shit in advance so you didn't have to actually watch the story.
I'm certain my eyesight's so bad because of all the scrambled cable channels I watched. Because
that's a bit of a relic from a bygone era that today's children probably have no idea what we're talking about.
Kids, sit down on Grandpa Randy's knee and I'll tell you a story. Back in my day.
You got it so good. You don't even know it.
You have no idea. We had no internet. Playboys were a thing we talked about in hushed tones, but pay cable channels were where it's at. The technology used to scramble these pay cable channels was so bad that you could actually turn it on any channel that was pay, and occasionally it would flick in. Sometimes it would flick in perfectly clear, depending where you were, depending if the stars aligned, if there was a comet flying by, if you found a leprechaun and made a happy wish, maybe it would appear. Other times it would be sort of scrambly, but you think you could make out a boob, maybe. What was that? I don't know, but it all seemed really hot.
It always looked like one of the trippier mescaline trips that they had in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. You didn't know if you were looking at a vulva or a lizard.
Oh, that's a quote to pull from this episode. Hormones are just the worst thing, huh?
I love it. At least my grandparents would tell me horror stories of the Depression. What stories do we have? Yeah. We couldn't see boobs.
Scrambled porn. Yeah. The next generation will be like, one day the internet went out and I couldn't post a snap or a TikTok. It's fun to make fun of generations.
It is.
Speaking of generations, we're about to talk about a once-in-a-generation movie.
I'd say this is more than a once-in-a-generation. I'd say, you can't... I can't imagine this movie being made any other time than the mid to late 70s.
The Lion King was released this summer in what was dubbed as a live-action version, but it was all done in CGI, and I like to think that this movie is the cautionary tale of why a real live-action Lion King could never have been made with real animals. I want to believe that somebody was like, yeah, but what about Roar? Remember that one? The one that's called the most dangerous movie ever made? That's why we shouldn't do that.
I was going to say, chances are all they had to do is send a text out to Melanie Griffith, just ask her about that. I would love to hear her side of these stories.
Yes. So Roar is called the most dangerous movie ever made. And why in the world would it be called that, you may ask? Because it's a movie featuring, I don't know.
I watched some things about it on YouTube. 150 large cats.
All untrained. 2 trained elephants. One director's crazy idea, and that crazy director's entire family. Because if you're planning on executing an insanely dangerous idea, why not involve your whole family? What could possibly go wrong?
Everything.
Everything. We'll get into it, but 70 people were hurt during this movie, which is surprisingly low, I would think, when you consider what everybody was working with here.
Honestly, I can't believe nobody died.
Obviously, he used his family because the animals were used to him and his family. So the inspiration for this happened in the late 60s. Noah Marshall and his wife, Tippi Hedren, who was over there filming a movie in Africa called Satan's Harvest. You may know Tippi from the Hitchcock great The Birds. Did you ever see The Birds?
I did have indeed. Yeah, I used to feel sorry for her.
You used to? What happened?
Well, my sympathy went out to her when you find out about some of the shit that Hitchcock inflicted upon her against her will. And then she decides, no, that's not hardcore enough. I'm going to show him how this shit's really made, and outdoes everything that he did voluntarily.
Yeah. So she was filming a movie called Satan's Harvest in Africa. Noah Marshall tagged along, and they saw an abandoned house that had been overrun with lions. She said in an interview with Parade magazine, it was an amazing thing to see. The lions were sitting in the windows. They were going in and out of the doors. They were sitting on the verandas. They were on top of the Portuguese house. They were in the front of the house. It was such a unique thing to see, and we thought, for a movie, let us use the great cats as our stars. I mean, really, this is the Home Alone sequel we really needed to see. Macaulay Culkin versus 50 lions. Home Alone 7. Who's the filthy animal now?
No, I wanted to see the cats go against the wet bandits.
Well, that would be good, too.
That would be amazing. Joe Pesci with all of his comedic timing.
Daniel Stern with his faces.
Yes.
Okay, let's make that movie. So inspired, Noah Marshall decided, hey, let's make a movie based on this. Let's use my own family. We'll live in a house alongside lions. So he investigated the idea, and lion tamers told him, nah, it's impossible. You can't bring that many big cats together on a film set. They won't get along. So he said, fuck you. I'm just going to get my own big cats. They might not be trained, but who cares? So
and wasn't the idea that he would make them get along and cooperate with each other by raising them from cubs to adulthood together and presenting himself as the alpha?
Exactly. That's why in the movie, this crazy weird man with his unkept hair that's kind of resembles a mane. If you notice, he's in between dialogue. He makes all these random lion noises and stuff. Like,
I just thought he was making the Captain Caveman movie.
Well, my thing is, okay, so the animals are used to you, right? Like, that worked out for the grizzly man, right? Did you ever see that?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was drawing a lot of parallels between those two.
Yeah. So the idea was he was going to start stockpiling all these animals, raising them at their home, because why not? This led to a photo shoot in Life magazine featuring their lion roommate, Neil, who was allowed to hang out in the house and sleep in the same bed with the kids, hang out in the living room or kitchen.
How bad do you think their house would smell like that?
I don't know. You have a dog sometimes. You go over somebody's house and they have these mangy dogs, and they stink so bad. I can only imagine what a lion smells like.
Well, I mean, think about an average cat box, domesticated feline. They can pump out some god awful smells. Imagine having a house full of large tigers and lions, pumas, and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, it would be bad. So he decided, hey, we're going to raise all these big cats together. We're going to start stockpiling them. We're going to buy all this land and build these sets. We're going to sink. They spent so much money, they basically went bankrupt. So much so that they had to live in a mobile home on the set. And the only thing that saved them is that Noel Marshall was on a movie. He executive produced a movie that became a huge hit.
Kind of a cultural landmark, if you ask.
And also, it had the added bonus of providing funding for this movie. He was an executive producer on The Exorcist. The power of Christ compelled him to make this movie. Like, he would not give up.
Now, I don't know if you're going to get to these parts yet, or if you forgot about them, but you missed two parts about this story that I found absolutely fascinating. When he was starting to kind of hoard large cats, he was living in like some really high-end areas of Los Angeles. And of course, the cats would get out and just walk up and down the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
It is insane. When I was a kid, at my grandparents' house, they lived in the middle of a city, but there was this one house with a fenced-in yard in the back and a big tarp over the backyard. They moved in one day and they put the tarp over the backyard, and everyone swore there was a tiger living in that backyard. I mean, I never saw a tiger. I never heard it roar. There might have been a tiger. But can you imagine going over someone's house and seeing a tiger just randomly walking around?
Unless I'm going to a backyard barbecue at Mike Tyson's, no, that would not be expected.
Well, John Marshall, which is one of Noah Marshall's sons, he reaped the benefits of this. In an interview, he said, I had this tiger that I absolutely loved called Nicky. I would take him down to a local lunch and bar place, and girls would go, oh my God, can I play with your tiger? That's not a sexual innuendo, by the way. That's what he said, the girl said. I'd say, well, not right now, but if you give me your phone number.
Wow.
He was taking a tiger out to the bar to pick up chicks.
You know what? I could see that working, though.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, a lot of guys are very successful at meeting ladies by walking their dogs in the park. I'd imagine that this is kind of a trump card in that scenario.
Yeah. I mean, how could you... And you got to be the most confident man in the world, right? You grew up around lions and tigers. You have to be confident or else they'll eat you.
Yeah. I can imagine where that would allow you to kind of plant your feet firmly on the ground. Yeah.
I can't imagine being afraid of anything.
No.
Like the daily adrenaline rush and PTSD that you'd suffer from just working on this movie alone, I would think would carry you on throughout the rest of your life with your head held high. Like, yes.
Either that or a life of, destitution and addiction. One of those two.
One of the two. So the problem with, so here's the deal. When I was in my early 20s, I was at a bonfire with some friends. And there was the house next door was getting, I don't know, I guess the people got kicked out or whatever. There was a dumpster in their backyard. So as we're sitting around my friend's bonfire, I noticed a TV in the dumpster, and I'm like, hey, we should throw that on the fire. And because we're all drunk idiots, yeah, do it. I said, I'm going to do it. They're like, yeah, do it. I'm like, I'm going to do it. Yeah, do it. So I go over there, and I grab the TV, and I stand over the fire holding this big TV, and I said, do you want me to do it? And everybody said, yeah. So I dropped the TV in the fire. And the thing that happened, because we were in the heat of the summer, what seemed like a real fun, good idea began to go out of control. Because when you throw an old school TV on a fire, the fire flames up very high because all the chemicals and whatnot that are in this old school TV. Also, it lets out a stink and a chemical smell that cannot be explained. So all that was seeping into the windows of everybody all around us. And it became a huge disaster. And that's what I think of this movie. Like,
Yeah.
I think this is a great idea. Let's do this. Yeah, you should do it. I'm going to do it. Should I? Yeah, do it. Oh, bad idea. Yeah. Dangled the cast and crew over the lions, and they all got bit. Because that's the thing. You thought ahead by raising these big cats, and they're used to you. You cast your family because they're all used to your family, and they may even have some affection for you and your family. But what about the crew? What about those people that the cats don't know? And also, as John Marshall said in another interview, you're fine with lions and tigers as long as you don't show any fear. The problem is the plot required us to show fear. These animals who had learned to respect us were totally confused when we started acting terrified. Whoops.
Oh, God.
Whoops.
Yeah, and do we want to talk about some of the injuries that occurred on this movie?
Absolutely. Well, let's give the basic plot. So the plot of the movie is let's turn on the camera and see what these animals can do. That's basically it.
Yeah. And I could see why Noel Marshall never made another movie after this, quite frankly.
Yeah. So it is quite the spectacle. I told Tomko that before we started recording. This is a spectacle. When you've never seen that many grown lions in one room together ever, and you never will again. But there, at one point, there's probably 30 lions just chilling out in a house, and two men just standing there, sitting there, hanging out with them, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing that I had gone through my head while I was watching this is, what a fucking asshole. I mean, yeah, it's the most dangerous movie ever made, but I would also say it holds the title of the most irresponsible movie ever made, because you're putting your family in danger. You're putting your employees in danger. You're putting the animals in danger. And for what? A really bad movie.
Yeah, they spent, all told, between the beginning of the idea and by the time it finally got made, 11 years on this movie, and it doesn't show. I mean, it was a disaster all the way around. There was all the injuries. Also, the fucking set got flooded and completely destroyed, and some of the big cats got loose after the flood.
Yeah, didn't they end up having to shoot two of the lions?
I think it was the lion they had the longest. That was the family's favorite. Got shot, and a bunch of the footage was buried underneath one of the buildings when it collapsed due to a flood. So maybe that movie that was buried underneath that wreckage was the Academy Award winner we were looking for. Instead, we got this.
Yeah, I just made a quick trip over to the inflation calculator. The final budget of this movie in 1981 was $17 million. Adjust that for today's dollars, and that's almost $48 million.
And it only made $2 million worldwide.
Yes.
Whoops.
Now, you were mentioning how they couldn't get any funding for this movie, and they actually did have some investors. I know that EMI, the big, huge English media company, was a temporary investor, and they also had some Japanese financiers. And one day, the Japanese investors decided to pay a visit to the set. Right when they were arriving, Noel was taking a bath, and of course he was letting the lions roam all over the place like he always did. And one of them decided that it was time to play and dragged him out of the bathtub by his throat.
Yeah.
He gets up and decides that, you know what, the lion needs to be punished because you can't have that kind of a behavior acceptable. Next thing you know, the Japanese investors see a naked Noel Marshall running, shouting after a lion, bleeding profusely from the throat.
Yep. That's
That,
great.
in my opinion, kind of sums up this movie.
Well, just to talk about the movie again for a minute, the tone of the movie is all over the place. At one point, it's like a slapstick comedy, and then it becomes like a family drama. And then at one point, it even becomes sort of a slasher movie with Togar the Rogue Lion doing like, here's Johnny throughout doors in the house and stuff and stalking the family. It's really weird. Like,
I would argue against that. I would say that the tone of the movie is consistent, but only because they didn't know how to really convey that visually. So they kind of tell you how to feel based on the music that's playing.
oh, I see. Do you think it's a ferocious comedy? Because that's how it was billed on the poster, Tom
That's
Co.
exactly how it was billed. No, I think it's an exercise in stupidity. And I'm saying this as somebody who is recommending that everybody at least watch this movie once in their life, because words will not do this movie justice. You have to see this to really kind of get the full grasp. Just don't go in expecting a good movie. Watch it and know that nothing in this movie is fake.
Well,
Real cats,
yeah.
real people, real blood, real pain.
Well, and I thought it was clever how they actually credited the animals as writers on the
Writers and
movies
directors, yes.
because they did whatever they want anyways. And it's, well, so I was at the zoo with my family one year, and actually the one by your house, that wilderness trail thing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and they have lions there. And I was there with my mom and dad and my sister, and we were looking at the lions. They had just got the lions there. And the trainer of the lions saw that we were looking at them, and he happened to walk over and he called the lions over, and they bounded over like house cats, and he was petting them through the cage, and it was clear that they had all this affection towards him, and they really liked him, loving it like a domestic house cat would, like scratches behind the ears and everything. It was really weird being, I don't know how far the barrier in the cage is, but being that close to the lion, you realize how fucking big they actually are. So the trainer's playing with the lion or whatever and telling us about him. Meanwhile, these two kids notice that the lions are right there up close, and they're all, screaming and yelling and carrying on. Yeah, kids, they got to ruin everything, right? So they wander over, and they're making all this noise, and the one lion starts to get up, and the trainer says, no, sit down. He said the lion's name, and I don't remember what it was. It doesn't matter. He's like, no, sit down. And the lion gets up, and he yells at my mom and the kids to move. And so the lion turned around, sprayed urine everywhere. My mom got pissed on by a lion because the lion had learned that whenever there's a loud noise, if it pisses through the cage, the loud noise goes away, believe it or not. And sure enough, the kids ran away.
Oh, that is awesome.
My mom was a little bit upset, and I'm like, Mom, not many people can say that they got pissed on by a lion. That's pretty awesome. And at the
that is amazing.
Yeah. But the moral of the story is the trainer told the lion no, and it did what it wanted anyways. Like, so, and the lions love this guy, clearly. So I don't know.
Honestly, I mean, that's what's so goddamn scary about those animals. At the end of the day, they're still they could take you out no matter how much affection you have between yourself and one of these cats. They're still cats. Ask Roy Horn how that worked out for him.
Yeah, not too well.
No.
And in this movie, you've got a skinny white dude screaming and carrying on and trying to get in between two fighting male lions. What a fucking asshole. And it's filmed, and you see it, and you can't believe it's happening.
Well, I mean, right from the get-go, when he's tackled by those lions, you automatically just kind of cringe because you think something's going to happen, and it eventually kind of does, but not as bad as what you're expecting.
He does get tackled by like 5-6 lionesses because they like him. However,
Yeah.
they also weigh a lot, so that could
And
crush
here's
a
the
man.
thing, even if they don't intend to hurt you, they could easily cut your face up. They could disembowel you. They could, step on you. Oh my God, what is this guy thinking?
Did you notice? And I don't know if you noticed in that scene that I was talking about where he tries to get in between the two fighting lions, which you can't fake that. They were obviously going at each other. He tries to get in between them, and the one goes after him. Did you notice he got tagged on the hand there?
Yes. And from what I understand, that was the first day of filming.
Yeah. Did you hear what happened?
Not with the hand. No, I heard about his legs.
There's so much bacteria in a lion's mouth that when you get bit, it almost causes an instant infection. So his hand started swelling up instantly. Like, you got the stankiest breath, lions, with that bacteria. So the very first day he gets bit on that hand, his hand starts swelling up, and it looked like he just got nicked, like maybe a tooth got him or whatever. Because clearly, if the lion was trying to bite him, it would have taken the whole hand. But just that little bit was so bad that the doctors were afraid that he was going to lose his arm.
Wow.
12 hours from lapsing into a coma because he was diagnosed from blood poisoning just from that little scrape.
Now, I also heard that at one point his legs were both gangrenous from the repeated puncture wounds that he received. He was in the hospital getting treatment for it, and something was going on set. He basically escaped from the hospital to make his way back to the film, never returned, and claimed to have willed the gangrene out of his body.
That's the level of crazy you're dealing with.
Oh, we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg with this guy yet.
No, not yet. So Jan Dumont was hired to film this movie. He would go on to be a director of Speed and other movies. For one shot, he held a handheld camera in a pit covered with a green tarp and filmed a group of lionesses running over him. And he wanted take after take after take. And for the record, the shot in the movie only lasts about 3 seconds. But he wanted to get this shot right because he was a perfectionist. Well, after one of the takes, one of the lionesses that were running over him noticed the tarp was moving, and like any cat, swiped at it. Because if you put a moving thing in front of a cat, they're going to swipe at it.
Mm-hmm.
Except when a lioness swipes at you, you get scalped and you get 200 stitches in the head.
Yes. And the most amazing thing about it is, didn't he show back to work like a week later?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that you've seen the pictures of his post-stitched head, haven't you?
Yeah, well, when the movie was released for the first time, really, because nobody knew about it, by Alamo Drafthouse, like the promotional posters were all injuries from the movie to promote which is kind of ingenious and kind of classless, but whatever. One of the posters is Melanie Griffith's clawed face, because Melanie Griffith was Noah Marshall's stepchild.
Yes. And this is honestly where I started to kind of turn against Noel. Because if you want to do stupid shit and put yourself in danger, go for it. If you're a legal adult, you know what you could possibly get yourself into, fine, do it. As long as you don't get anybody hurt who can't really speak for themselves. Wasn't she like 16 or 17 at this time?
Yeah, she was not a legal adult. She was not 18, I don't think. She was dressed up like a sex symbol. Like I don't know. That was kind of creepy to me, honestly.
Yes. That's where I really started to kind of turn against Noel as a person, because you are putting your family in danger. You're putting your children in danger. And at the point that she got really, really hurt, first of all, from what I understand, they had safe words where if they wanted to cut, they said the safe word and no questions asked, they stopped. She was getting pawed on the head by one of the lions, and she says, Noel, Noel, Noel. That was the safe word, and he kept filming.
Yep.
And not only that, he kept it in the film.
Yeah, you can actually see her getting. Well, you don't see a full on shot of her getting clawed in the face, but if you pay attention, you can see it happening. There's two scenes that happen back to back, and she's on the ground, and the lions are running over her. At one point, one of them stops and grabs her by the back of the head and starts pulling back, like grabs her hair and starts pulling back, and Tippy Hedren runs in screaming hysterically. That's not acting. That's real. She thought her daughter was going to get seriously injured there. However, she did get seriously injured a few seconds later, because you can see her face laying down, and one of the younger lions kind of paws at her face, you can see, and you can see her sort of grab it. You don't see her bloody face or anything, but...
No, they saved that for the publicity photos.
Absolutely, and that required plastic surgery, and she wasn't going to return to the movie. She was going to drop out. They were going to refilm all of her scenes with some other actress, and she decided to go ahead and be a trooper and finish the movie. And I just wonder if she got guilted into it, you know?
Probably.
Yep.
And honestly, that's why I posted on Facebook and Twitter where I never thought I wish I could go back in time just to slap somebody. That's what kind of did it for me. That's where it stopped being this weird, eccentric guy having this bizarre adventure with these huge cats. And it really started to get grossly irresponsible. And I don't use the word grossly lightly. This was just kind of disgusting.
Yeah, well, and you worry about like everybody on the crew and the other actors that were hired. There's some scenes where some other actors are wrestling with tigers, and the tigers don't look happy at all.
No, where the tigers are pushing them underwater.
Yeah, so apparently tigers love water. I don't know this, but based on this movie, anytime you get in the water, the tigers are going after you. So stay out of the water. Jaws isn't the problem. The tigers.
No.
By the way,
now I want to see a tiger fight a shark.
Oh God,
that would be badass.
It's got to be a sci-fi original movie somewhere, right?
Has to be. If not, what kind of world are we living in?
By the way, this movie takes place in Africa. Tigers don't live in Africa.
Filmed on location in California.
Yeah, filmed on location in California, yes. Tippy, her leg was broken by
a fucking elephant.
By an elephant, yes.
How many people in Hollywood can say that?
Yep. And you can... This scene is fairly obvious because they reversed it, so it looks like the elephant is picking her up and putting her on the elephant's back, you know, grabbing the trunk around her ankle, putting it on its back like a friendly elephant. But that's not what happened. She was on its back, and it flipped her off by the ankle and broke her ankle. But they reversed the footage, so if you see it, it's fairly obvious. Like, I don't know. If you're not aware of that fact, it might not be as obvious, but...
I mean, I get what he's trying to do with this movie.
Yeah.
Where he's trying to show these animals as majestic and beautiful, and it's the humans who are the savages. I get that, but I don't know. Maybe make a documentary or something.
Yeah, that would have been better, I think.
He had the resources where he could have made a phenomenal nature movie.
Yeah, absolutely. You could have just filmed the lions interacting with each other, and that would have been fascinating.
Yeah, and maybe throw in some shots where if your family, or at least maybe your adult wife, was comfortable enough to interact with them, show that.
Well, it's funny because the threadbare plot of the movie, the real thin line of the movie is Marshall plays this guy that went to Africa for 3 years to study the big cats and to prove that they can live with humans and whatever. So he's got this big house with every imaginable animal, and there's this group of poachers that don't like the fact that this is happening, and his family is coming to visit him because they haven't seen him in 3 years, and they have no clue what he's up to. So he goes to pick him up. They arrive just as he leaves, and it's this series of missed encounters. And there's a rogue lion that's causing problems. But in the end, it's a happy ever after. Like Robbie, the alpha male, fights Togar, the rogue lion, and wins, and then they become friends. And the family, who was afraid of the lions and tigers to begin with, learns that, hey, they're not so bad, and they start playing with them and petting them, and it's happy.
Yeah, you know what? That's where I have to kind of walk back my comments about the mood just kind of shifting with the music. That was a jarring shift.
Oh, yeah.
Where the family hides out in this shed or whatever in the backyard, and they're terrified. They fall asleep and they wake up, and the cats are lounging with them.
Yeah.
First of all, lock the fucking door.
Right.
And then second of all, what was the whole point of that previous 45 minutes where you're running around screaming, terrified, and trying to get away?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if nothing else, maybe the lesson of the day is wait for your ride when you go to the airport.
That's a solid lesson, I think. Yeah, so they come out of the shack, and the sun seems to be shining brighter, and everything's happy and jolly and the best. And then there's a epic sunset with Noah and his wife and a lion, and they're all happy together. The end. Life is good.
Unless you're Marshall's assistant.
What happened there?
Throughout the entire movie, he's just treated kind of like shit.
Mativo,
he's
you
left
mean?
Trying to defend himself against tigers and lions with an umbrella.
Yeah.
He's having to ride in the trunk so that they can cart the tigers around. That guy's one of the real victims of this movie.
I think he's the one that made me most nervous throughout the whole entire movie. I'm like, this poor guy.
Yeah, because he looked like he had a lot of genuine fear the entire time.
Exactly, and they kept trying to tug on his jacket, and all he wanted was his dumb jacket. God, tigers, give him his jacket.
Oh, come on. That was a sweet members only jacket. Back in the 70s, that was a hot commodity.
Two of my favorite scenes in the movie involved the tigers. One, the ridiculous visual of him driving and Mativo next to him and two big tigers in the back seat is just priceless. And then the other is when they're in the boat and the tiger jumps in because they love rides apparently, and the boat starts to sink and the dumb tiger is trying to climb on top of the sinking ship and boat, and he has no idea what's going on, that stupid tiger.
Now, what did you think about Noel Marshall as a character? Because I kind of walked away from this thinking he was pretty much an asshole.
I don't think he had a character. I think he was playing himself, to be honest. I don't think there was...
That's possible? Because, he doesn't have any kind of remorse over the death of the two poachers.
Oh, no.
If for no other reason, then the authorities are going to come into this refuge and they're going to demand answers as far as how these deaths happened. And also, did you catch the scene where they were talking to the local people trying to get back to his refuge? and he has his assistant distract them while he steals their bikes.
Right.
It's a fucking dick move, Noel.
Yeah. Their only form of transportation, and you done stole it.
Exactly. They could be relying on that for everything, and he just casually steals them
and then
he crashes them.
Then he borrows that guy's car and just leaves it on a mountain.
That.
Yeah, he just leaves it there. You're a walking disaster, sir.
And I think that I think that might sum up the movie. It's well-intentioned, dumb disaster of a movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But it's one of those movies that if you don't think about the plot, you don't think about the acting, the writing, anything like that, you can't take your eyes off of it, especially if you know the story behind the movie. Because that's what sells it for me.
Oh, absolutely. To know that all this stuff, to know it's not fake.
It's not fake.
Yeah. To know this is, when I originally saw the trailer for this movie, and I believe it was when Alamo Drafthouse was brought it back, I think in 2015 or whatever. That's what blew my mind, was the scenes of all the cats and stuff, and they were like attacking the people, and I think the trailer said they were untrained and stuff. I'm like, this is insane.
And it is.
Yeah, I think in the trailer there was a scene where a lion jumps off the roof and started chasing. I'm like, oh my God, what is this thing? I have to see this. This looks like a disaster.
Now, another asshole moment on the part of Noel. You were mentioning how they can't get the tigers to hit their marks or perform on command.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about some of the things that they did to try to get performances out of these cats?
No, I know that I watched a documentary that Animal Planet put out, but I watched that a long time ago, so I don't remember.
Okay, at one point, one of Noel's sons is hiding in a barrel filled with water, trying to have the cats not notice him.
Right, yeah.
And in the movie, the cats are looking into the barrel and they're supposed to drink the water. Well, they couldn't get the cats to do that on command. So what they did is they put them on a very hot roof for 3 hours and fed them full of salted meat.
Oh my God.
Fuck you, Noel. Like I said, I mean, this movie is it's all at the same time. It's a bad movie. It's a fascinating movie. It's captivating. But when you learn about some of the shit that went on, I can't help but think that this guy is just a fucking asshole.
Well, there was a horror movie that came out in the early 90s called Shakma. Basically, it's a group of people get stalked by a killer baboon. And obviously, it's a real baboon. And to film the scenes of the baboon going apeshit and pounding on doors and just losing its mind, they actually had a female in the behind the door, like spraying pheromones and stuff. So the baboon was going, pardon the pun, apeshit over this female in the next room. So they're filming this poor animal in heat as it's losing its goddamn mind. All for the entertainment of the stupid people watching this movie.
Just so stupid, so irresponsible. I feel like my father saying this, but so damn irresponsible.
And I guess we've stumbled upon one of the benefits of CGI these days. You don't have to treat an animal like goddamn shit anymore to
exactly
get it to do what you want.
I do recommend this movie with some heavy caveats.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not a good movie. Don't expect it to be, but it is worth seeing because of the spectacle of all the lions. And there will be a lot of what the fuck moments for you. So maybe gather up a few friends, drink some beer, and laugh at it, because you will laugh. You'll be like, oh my God, what's happening? And
yes, this is definitely a shot in a beer movie.
Yep.
All right. Anything else you have to say about it, sir?
I think that about sums it up. I do.
All right.
So this has been our big return episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Next time we're going to talk about the movie called 1201.
Oh.
1201. This is a movie that aired on Showtime, and the producers of this movie and the writer of this movie would later sue the makers of Groundhog Day for a similar premise. Yes.
Oh, really?
That Groundhog Day. Yeah. So we'll investigate. We'll really see what's what.
I look forward to it, sir.
Absolutely. Where can the people find you, Mr. Tomko?
Well, you can find me each and every week on the aforementioned Jake and Tom Conquer the World podcast. It's a show in which we talk about all things geek, talk about what we like to drink, and anything else that pops into our head, whether it's time traveling stories or porn parodies. We'll talk about it there.
Oh, yeah. I love the porn parody talk.
I'm trying to get Jake to talk about another one. It's just, he's a busy guy.
Oh, man. That's my favorite thing. You can find me on the Miserable Retail Slave Show. We've recently come back. The last episodes released were we recorded in the car on the way to one of Tommy's comedy gigs. The first part featured me wanting to become a Russian slap fighter, and and the second part features me going on a rant about this girl I saw at the comedy show from Rome, Italy, dating this doofus from Central Michigan University. And also we go on a huge long tirade about Stephen King's tweet, which he got himself in hot water over.
Oh, Steve.
Oh, Steve. Not so penny-wise now, are you, sir?
I see what you did there.
I'm a clever boy. That's what I am. That's what my mommy tells me. So if you like what you hear, go ahead and tell a friend to listen to this, please. We hope you, I'm going to set up I didn't want to, but I'm probably going to set up a Facebook page or something soon. So you can like that if you like the program. Follow me on Twitter at mretailslave or Fave Podcast on that Twitter, or search the hashtag Miserable Retail Slave on Instagram to follow either show accounts. That would be great.
As far as myself on social media, you can find me at The Drunken Dork on Twitter. And if you want to venture over to Facebook, you can find us at Jake and Tom Conquer the Group.
We don't have a fancy sign-off, so maybe somebody can write in and tell us a sign-off that we can have for the show. Email me at someone's favorite movie podcast at gmail.com, and also send me in your pick for your favorite guilty pleasure, underappreciated gem, etc., because we would love to tackle those. Okay?
Yes.
That would be awesome. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.